Hey there, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a long-awaited updated houseplant tour for you guys. It's been a minute since I've done one of these, and the last time I did one was actually when I was still living in a one-bedroom apartment. Since then I've moved to a much bigger house, and the lighting in this house is insane compared to my apartment. And just all the different areas where I can put plants, my collection has, I think, grown exponentially. So I also haven't counted my plants in a very long time, so let's see how many plants we can get up to. Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if it was like well over 100 at this point. And we're going to start with the top of my piano. I've managed to put a bunch of plants up here thanks to the help of some grow lights, because as you can see, this room is pretty dark, but it does get some good sunlight just right by the windows, and this area just doesn't get very much. I have the grow lights off right now, obviously, so I don't blind you, but these plants have been doing really well with the grow lights, so I'm excited to show you. The first one in this row is this tiny little painted lady philodendron. It has the prettiest little speckled leaves, and it's just a baby, but it is throwing out a brand new leaf out there, and it might need watering. Honestly, probably most of my plants need watering today, but it is one of my new favorites. I just got this one in the past couple weeks, and it's been on my wish list for quite a long time, and so I can't wait to see how big it gets. The next one in this row is another one of my favorite plants, and it is I believe it's just a silver stripe philodendron. I don't think it's a cream splash, although a lot of the new leaves are very creamy. They're very small too though, so I hope I can get them to show up on the camera for you. So as you can see, there's a lot of just really nice variegation going through here. Some of the leaves are a lot bigger than others, but they're just the prettiest leaves on them, and I'm so excited to see if the grow lights bring out that creaminess that much more. It is like, it's a fast growing plant, but it doesn't get very big very fast for me. It is in this tiny pot, so maybe I need to repot it so it has more room to grow. But yeah, this is one of, I think, 2 or 3 silver stripe philodendrons that I have, but it is one of my favorites. And then behind that I have one of my less favorite plants, I guess. This is one that I got a while ago, and it hasn't done much growing since, and it's very thirsty, and you'll see in a minute. But it's a Dieffenbachia. I don't know what kind, and I don't know, I keep it alive because obviously I want to see it grow, but it just doesn't necessarily do anything for me. This is my begonia conchifolia, I think is how you say it. It is flowering right now, so I'm super excited about that, but I just really loved the green and red, and it kind of just reminded me of like sort of lily pad shaped leaves and stuff, so I really liked that too. And yeah, just in this shallow black pot, I think it's just perfect. So it's definitely one of my favorites right now. The leaves on it, like I said, are just so incredibly pretty, and some of them are just a bit like damaged from the just irregular waterings and just adjusting to my house, but as you can see, there's some nice flowers coming in there, and yeah, it's so cute. This next one was a complete experiment for me. I had this Hoya obovata cutting in water for ages, and it wasn't growing at all. It had some really nice roots, but it just wasn't really growing, so I potted it up in this little homemade planter, and it finally started pushing out some new leaves in the past couple weeks. So I'm so excited that it's actually growing, because I don't have a good track record with Hoyas. And then one of my last ones underneath the grow light is just this Marble Queen pothos. Nothing super special. I just wanted to grow it faster, so it's trailing a little bit, because these are really slow growers. But it's one of 2 Marble Queens that I have, and it's a pothos, but it does grow better for me than some of my other pothos, because I don't know why I struggle with those ones too so much, because they're supposed to be really easy plants. But this is just one that I've always kind of struggled with. And then the last one in this corner over here is this Brazil philodendron. It's one that I had it in my bathroom for a really long time, and it started, like, the leaves started yellowing a bit, and now it's grown into the little bookshelf that I put underneath it, so let me untangle that. So I felt like it was getting too much light, so I put it in here to kind of give it the exact opposite, I guess. And it's still growing and everything. The growth is smaller, but again, I think I need to pot this one up because I haven't taken a look at these roots in a while, but they are completely coming out of the bottom of the pot. So I definitely need to repot it or do something, because that's really terrible of me to have left the roots like this for so long, because they are literally completely growing out of that pot. So those are my piano grow light plants, but I have an even darker corner over on the opposite side of the room that I have a grow light on too, and those ones are surprisingly doing really well just with that single grow light as their like only source of light. The grow lights I have set up here are from the company Mother. They were so kind as to send me my upright one that I have. They sent me, I think, last year sometime, And then I have another one mounted on their microfarm mounts, and that is for the top of my piano, and it works perfectly in that space. These are full spectrum grow lights, and they're a lot better than many of the other grow lights that I've tried, just in terms of functionality, modularity, and the way that they look. Like, grow lights can sometimes be very industrial looking and just kind of plain ugly. I love these ones for how sleek they are, and they're really inconspicuous if you set them up right. I had to turn on their grow light and kneel down so we can actually see the full little shelf that we have here. Starting with my current pride and joy, it's my Schefflera, because this one, it's like a love-hate relationship where it just does not grow for me very much, but I put it under the grow light because I was just like, fine, I'll give you the best conditions I have and see if you grow from that. And it just barely put out this brand new little leaf here. And it's so cute, just all those little variegated leaves and everything. And I hope it keeps putting out new growth and this isn't just a one-off. Sometimes I think this plant is doing really well and then it will just drop like half of its leaves. So I'm praying that this is just the norm from now on. And then this is the little mystery Hoya that we have there. I'm not certain what kind it is. It looks similar to my Publicalyx. The leaf shape is just completely different. It's not doing anything for me in terms of growing or anything. So I'm just gonna keep, you know, watering it when it's dry and hope that it helps. So next is my Hoya Publicalyx, and this is one that I put in front of the grow light, and like within a week it put out this really nice leaf right here, and it looks like there's another one on the way. So I hope that this really starts taking off for me because it grows really slowly. And then a little bit higher on that shelf is this philodendron brandy, and this is one that I am not sure exactly what he wants, because sometimes he'll put out nice leaves and then sometimes it will look like he's gonna put out nice leaves and then they'll just kind of burn up before they even unfurl. So I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong or what he's wanting. So I put him in front of the grow light and he grows a little wonky. As you can see, all these kind of little shoots are just kind of going wherever. And I know that he wants to climb, but I just don't have anything to put him on yet. So I'm letting him vine around himself right now and just do his thing. And this is my very successful Fittonia, which I just put it in front of the grow light like a couple weeks ago or so. And there is actually some leaves coming in right here. They're too small for you to see, but there is some sign of life on that plant. So I'm going to keep it there and hope that it works. And then lastly on that shelf is my silver stripe. This one is a lot less, silvery and creamy than my other one that I showed you, but it is a lot bigger, so I am happy about that. I put it in front of the grow light because it was in a bit of a darker spot before and I just wanted it to really thrive. So it's a recent move, so I'm not sure exactly how it's been reacting, but we'll have to keep tabs on it and see. So behind me we have a west facing window, and that is probably the brightest spot in the front of my house, just because in the afternoon you get a ton of sun coming through there. So I have quite a bit of plants kind of lined on my desk, and then also just right in front of the window on some shelves and some stools and all that sort of stuff. So the first plant I have on my desk just right in front of the window is this peperomia, and I believe it's called a Peperomia ambricose, but it has these really, really pretty pink on its leaves, and I really liked that, even though Peperomia don't seem to like my house very much. So I'm shocked that this has been alive for the past couple of weeks since I've had it, but I'm also not holding my breath because like it could die on a moment's notice. So I'm just kind of enjoying it while it lasts. Next, I have this little micans in this little turtle planter that I crocheted. It does need to be watered, but it was like, they were tiny little water propagations, and they barely had any sort of leaf on it or anything, so I really didn't have high hopes that it would even survive, but it recently threw out a brand new little shoot, so I have hope now. I put two little propagations in there, and we have one tiny green leaf growing on the one, and the other one doesn't look too promising, but I'm still keeping my fingers crossed. And then next over there I have this little Pilea peperomioids, or if that's how you say it. This is one of two plants that I have, and this is one that I grew from a tiny little 2-inch pot, and it's still, you know, not super impressive looking, but it is growing, so I'm holding on to that because I'm just dreaming for the day where it's like a tree essentially. And then next to that is my philodendron Florida, I believe it is, and this is one that I only recently moved into this room because again I wanted it to have a brighter light situation so it would put out bigger leaves, because as you can see the most recent leaf is a bit on the smaller side compared to these older ones, so I really just wanted to give it a better life, you know? So that's on my desk now, just facing that west facing window. And then over by the window we have just a bunch of plants here, but first being my Monstera deliciosa. And this is one plant that I actually struggle with a little bit. It's a good size, but it doesn't have a lot of fenestrated leaves. I mean, it used to, but they all kind of died off a bit when I had it in a darker light situation. So it is happier right now, but it just doesn't grow very fast for me. It's growing a ton of aerial roots in here, but it's just still a bit of a tangled mess in there, and there's just not a lot of new growth in the form of leaves or any of that sort of stuff coming through. But I just keep it watered and we'll see what happens. And then over on my little plant shelf, we have this Monstera Peru, and I just love the texture on these leaves. It just looks so cool. It almost looks like a little dragon scale. And this is just a couple cuttings in a pot, so they're not gonna be super full or anything like that, but it is growing really well considering the adjustment period that it needed and all that sort of stuff. And then up above that, we have this little, I think it's like a sweetheart English ivy or something like that, but I just really loved the shape of the leaves, and I just can't wait for it to trail over and just really be really full. And then over on this side, we have this narrow form Monstera Adansonii. Once again, I moved it from a bit of a darker light situation and propagated it a bit. This is one that always gives me a bit of trouble because it's one of those plants that it's almost like it was propagated in such a way that it doesn't stay in its pot. So I had to put some rocks at the top on top of the soil so it would kind of weigh it down. Otherwise, it was like I was repotting it every time I watered it, and it just was a little bit annoying. And then right below the Monstera Adansonii, I had to take him out so we could take a look at him, is this Baltic blue pothos. And once again, he's kind of still adjusting since I got him. We're just waiting for him to start trailing and put out some more growth, and then he should be good to go. And then the last plant in this corner is this philodendron burl marks, and this is one I recently put a moss pole in his pot so he could have something to climb up, because this is a plant that it was just too droopy and it kept snapping the branches and it just wasn't very happy. So I moved him to a higher light spot and put that moss pole in, and he's still adjusting, so everything's still a bit droopy. But yeah, I'm just waiting it out, not watering it yet, and seeing how it goes. So the next area of my house that we have is my first little entryway window, and this is, I believe, a north-facing window, so not a ton of light, but it still gets a good enough amount of light that plants on the windowsill aren't gonna suffer at all. I have an orchid back here, but I don't really class that as like a house plant. I just have it as a water propagation, so I'm not really gonna go over that one. But I also have a little Hoya obovata water propagation there too, and it's not doing too hot. The leaves are kind of yellowing a bit, and it's just kind of in dire need of a repot because the roots are really going crazy down here, but I just haven't gotten around to repotting it, and honestly I don't know if I can get it out of here. And then behind that I have this little Peperomia obstifolia, and then there's a tiny Peperomia hope cutting in there that I threw in randomly and it actually rooted. And this is one that I definitely neglect a fair amount, but it still grows and it's still doing okay, so I just kind of let it do its thing and water it whenever I notice that it's dry. And this windowsill has quickly become kind of my string of hearts corner. I think I have 3 string of hearts plants here now, and this is my most recent one. It's a variegated string of hearts, and I just love it so much. It's a good size because a lot of the ones that I was finding were in 6-inch pots, and I just don't need a plant that big. So I was really excited to find this one just at a local plant shop, and I just love variegated string of hearts so much. So we'll see how it does. Now I really need to untangle this string of hearts, but it has just taken off since I've put it here, and it's just kind of grown out of my control a little bit. The top isn't like too bad, but it has definitely thinned out since I got it. But yeah, it's been here for maybe a year, and it's just a complete matted mess at this point. And then my last string of hearts on that little windowsill is this one. It's another normal one, but I do actually have a single strand of variegated string of hearts in here that I don't even know where I got it from, but I just planted it up with the rest of them because they all take the same care at the end of the day. The leaves on this one aren't quite as big as my other one. And again, it's so tangled down at the bottom, but it is still super cute, and I really love it in this terracotta pot. Now, next to me, this fiddle leaf fig is one that I was so terrified of killing because I felt like people always had bad experiences with fiddle leaf figs, and I was like, if there's a plant that's fussy, it dies when I take care of it. But this one, surprisingly, it dropped a few leaves when I first got it, but it did just put out a new leaf for the first time in like the year I've had it, I think a couple months ago. So it seems like it's doing okay, although it's not actively growing another new leaf, but it's not dying either. So we'll take that as a win. And then the last plant on this little shelf is my neon pothos. And this is one that actually grows really well for me. I had it in a 4-inch pot a little over a year ago or so, and it was just drying out so fast. So I potted it up into a 6-inch pot, and it doesn't get very much light here at all. Especially like these down further like vine bits, they don't get much light at all. But it still does really, really well, and it's really happy, but it does need watering almost 24/7. So I bet the roots have filled up that pot like crazy. Moving on into my kitchen area though, we have an entire row of just northern facing windows. And so they're all very similar lighting conditions, and it's just a lot of little starter plants and propagations that I have sitting on those ledges. So I'm just gonna rapid fire them and we'll just go through them like that. So first up, we have another string of hearts pot right here, and this one is probably in the roughest shape out of the rest of them that I have, because it kind of just hardly gets any light, especially on these lower vines here. But it is still doing well on the top. So I just keep it here, and then if I have any propagations, I kind of throw them in that pot too. Next, we have a watermelon peperomia that we're not going to talk about. And we have a strawberry begonia, and then a failed wet stick cutting of a silver sword philodendron. Next to that, we have another African violet strawberry begonia cutting situation going on here. And then we have a little string of turtles, and then a failed curly lipstick cutting back there. And then next to that, we kind of have a mixed propagation jar of some philodendron micans over here in the corner, some brandy philodendron, and then a Scindapsus argius with that too. And then I think there's a Monstera adansonii up here as well. And then next to that, we have another jar of cuttings with some Baltic blue and then some Monstera Peru kind of hiding in the back here. And then we have a very sad, very yellow Pilea, I think Moon Valley. I don't know what he wants. I just kind of let him be, and he puts out new leaves still, but they just yellow straight away. And then we have another really sad Peperomia rosso, I believe it's called, who again, I don't know what he wants. And then a little Peperomia frost in the corner here. And then next, I have this little table in the middle of my kitchen here. I have my Oxalis triangularis here because I think it got some ants in it on my other windowsill, so I kind of moved here to quarantine them. And then over here, I have a wide form Monstera adansonii, and this one again needs more light. The vines are getting so leggy on the sides here, but I still keep him here because he still looks cute. And then on the next windowsill, I have a succulent of some kind that is on its last legs because I can't take care of succulents apparently. A tiny philodendron micans, and then some of the Monstera adansonii narrow form cuttings in here. I have a tiny Baltic blue cutting in here that I kind of left when I went out of town, and it was on the verge of death, but it still has some new growth coming in. And then I have some Tradescantia cuttings in here, and then a couple of leaves from my Peperomia obstifolia. I have some regular heartleaf philodendron cuttings, some Brazil philodendron cuttings, some Cebu blue, and then a Monstera Peru cutting at the top here. And then I have some more just regular heartleaf philodendron cuttings here. And then this is a mixed pot of just a bunch of different cuttings that I had. There's some Cebu blue, some Scindapsus argius, some micans, and I believe that's it in this pot. I have another Scindapsus argius right here that isn't doing super hot, but I've had him for a long time, so he'll survive. And then in here, I have another pot of some silver striped philodendron that's doing well. And then in here, I have some cuttings of a Tradescantia, a curly lipstick plant, and then some regular lipstick plant. And that's it for my little propagation wall. And then over here, it's another north-facing kind of reading nook area, and I just have filled it with plants instead of cushions and comfy reading stuff. But I have a lot more just propagations and kind of beginner plants here. So here I have some Peperomia obstifolia cuttings that I took just a couple weeks back. So there's no roots on them as of yet. Well, I mean, there's a couple, but I'm not keeping my fingers too crossed for this one. And then we have a couple philodendron Birkin right next to that. It was from the same original plant. They were just too big to fit into one jar, and they had gotten spider mites, and I couldn't be bothered to take care of them, so I just took them out of their soil and put them in water. Then moving on down the line, I have this Monstera deliciosa that has some really big leaves and some good potential. I just don't think I water it nearly enough, so I don't know. It doesn't grow very quickly for me, if at all, and the new growth just never hardens off and always looks kind of droopy and sad. But once again, I kind of struggle with Monstera adansonii, Monstera deliciosa, and I just don't know what to do with it. Moving on down the line here though, I have my golden pothos here, which is the only pothos other than my neon one that grows really well for me. It's from Gabriella Plants, so of course it has great variegation. But yeah, it's just a nice one. Just kind of a normal kind of staple. I feel like I have to have a golden pothos if I'm gonna be someone that collects up a lot of houseplants. Funnily enough though, I didn't get one until like nearly 2 years into collecting plants. That's a lie. Golden pothos was the first kind of propagations that I got me started with houseplants, but this is the first like proper plant of pothos that I like purchased. And then next to that, I have this Trebbii Moonlight, Scindapsus Trebbii Moonlight. And this is my mother plant that I just got from Lowe's, and it grows a lot quicker than I thought it would. My Scindapsus generally don't grow very well, or not very well, but very quickly. This one does, however, it is, I find, a little bit more prone to throwing out just plain runners with no leaves. So that's what this one's doing, but also it throws out the occasional leaf on it, so I still keep it around and don't chop them because I think it's kind of cute. And then the last in this lineup is this philodendron burl marks, and this is from a cutting that I took of my main plant, my bigger plant in my office room when I was moving, because this is one of the branches that snapped off, so I had to propagate him, and he looks cute in this little green and gold pot, so we're keeping him here for the moment. Even though he doesn't seem to love it, he is still throwing out new growth, so we'll see if it works. And then moving on to this little bench area that I have in my dining room, it doesn't get a ton of light. It just kind of gets residual light from an east-facing window I have over to the right of me, and then the north-facing windows lining the whole wall. So it gets enough for lower light tolerant plants, but not enough for like, I couldn't put a string of hearts here. The first plant on this lineup is my Pearls and Jade pothos, and this is one, I'm so confused by this one because it has a bunch of like growth points, but this is the only trailing bit that it has. So I'm not sure why, but it is a really pretty plant. Don't mind the crispy bits that are in there, but it is just really pretty, and especially the new growth it's been putting out down at the bottom here. I've really been enjoying it and just seeing how well it's been growing here despite the low light situation that it has. Next to that is a plant that certainly should not be in lower light conditions, and that's probably why it hasn't been growing super well for me. But it is my Rhaphidophora decursiva, I believe. And as you can see, there's a real long runner right here, and then it put out 2 leaves randomly several months ago, and then that's kind of it. So I just don't know where I would move it, just given the space that this would take up, and I don't really want to chop it back right now, so I'm just kind of, it's in a waiting period right now. Next to those, I have a couple jars of Monstera deliciosa cuttings, once again from my main plant that I had when it wasn't doing too hot. These cuttings, as you can imagine, aren't doing too hot either, just given the low light. I really think Monstera deliciosa is a high light plant, which is so funny because I see them on like beginners list as low light friendly and stuff like that, but I really don't think that's the case, just given my experience. But like I said, any of you have like tips and tricks on how to keep them alive and thriving, let me know down in the comments because I'm struggling with these. But next to those, I have a couple Syngonium that I just picked up that I thought were cute at the grocery store. I think this is a Syngonium like Maria or something like that, but I'm really not sure. I just really liked the different colored leaves. And I'm just waiting for it to kind of separate and grow a bit more out of the straight up kind of bush formation. And then this is the other Syngonium that I got. It has some really cute like pink leaves, which are kind of similar to the milk confetti variation, but I really don't think there's a milk confetti because of the leaf shape and everything. I feel like milk confetti has like fatter leaves, if that makes sense, but I just thought the pink was cute because I'm really into pink plants right now. If anyone knows what the variation is, feel free to educate me because it would be a lot better to take care of if I knew. And then the next plant is one that I don't see a lot of people keeping as a house plant, just because I feel like it's gotten so like grocery store vibes, you know, with it in the past couple years, but it's a variegated shell ginger. And I thought it looked so cute. I really love yellow plants, and I thought the variegation on this one was so fun. And it was like really cheap, so I mean, variegation for cheap is always fun. But yeah, I don't know anything about it other than I think it's called a shell ginger plant, but yeah, I'm just having fun with it right now. It seems like it's growing really well despite the low light, and I also know it needs to be watered, and I haven't watered it, so it seems like it's pretty hardy. I keep saying that this is like the darkest corner of my house, but this one really is a pretty bad corner to have plants in. And you probably don't recognize this plant because it looks so sad and doesn't look anything like what it's supposed to, but it's a Norfolk pine, and I got it for like $3 at an estate sale, so it wasn't doing too hot already. But as you can see, it's still really not doing too hot, and I don't know what it needs. I think I'm just gonna chop off the top, like the topmost branch, and put it in water and see if I can grow another tiny one from this plant, because I have a feeling it's on its last legs. And then next to that, I have this peace lily, and it's just a normal peace lily that, again, kind of just looks a bit like, I think skrunkly is a word that they use for stuff like this, and I think it just embodies that word perfectly. It's cute, it's fun, and it droops over every other day because it needs water so much, but it's throwing out some new growth and it seems happy enough, so I kind of just leave it here. And then next to that, I have this green vein Maranta that looks really, really sad. It used to be a nice full pot of Maranta, but as you can see, it is straggling. But it's such a pretty plant when it is full and healthy, but I don't know why it just, this was before I even put it in this spot, so it's not the lighting and everything. but it was already just kind of declining, and I just moved him because I didn't want to deal with him, and I haven't found a spot for him to kind of recover yet. So he's kind of just here until I decide what to do with him. Moving on to one of my favorite areas of my house though, it's this big old bookshelf. It's got about 5 tiers, and I just try to jam as many plants as I can on it. It gets a decent amount of light. There's a west facing window here, as well as like a door that's just a window. And then it gets all the rest of the light from the rest of the house. So it's not too bad of a lighting situation. Still not the brightest, but you know, we can make do. At the top shelf, we have a philodendron, just a regular green Hartley philodendron. And then behind that, we have this Macaulay's Finale philodendron that I only recently put here because he wasn't liking his other area very much. And he's just got this problem where he grows new leaves a lot, and then the leaves don't unfurl at all. So then it just causes a lot of problems and it doesn't look very nice. So the leaves normally come in like a nice cinnamon kind of color, but as you can see, like over here and up here, they're not unfurling at all. So I don't know what's going on. So once again, he's kind of just in this spot as a sort of like rehab for him right now. So we'll see how he does. And then next to him, I have this really nice and full global green pothos. And it's got a lot of crispy bits at the top because I often forget to water him, but he is still really nicely variegated down here at the bottom. And yeah, I just didn't really know where to put him because he is such a full, large plant. I feel like he almost takes too much space up on that top shelf, but also I wanted something dangling over. So I just haven't decided where his like forever home is going to be within my house. But yeah, as you can see, there's some like empty bits in the pot. So it's beauty in the front, just ugly in the back, but he is still a fun plant, and I hope that he can be a bit happier moving forward. And then next to him, I have this philodendron bipennifolium, and as you can see, when the leaves get mature, it's really, really nicely shaped and everything. However, because of his lighting situation and just where he's been living and where I've been putting him, his leaves have been slowly getting smaller and just like no shape to them. I know I should probably give him a pole to climb on, but he kind of looks fun the way that he just dangles down here, and I've wrapped him around the bookshelf pole and everything, so I think I might keep him here for now. On the next shelf down, I have this little Tradescantia. I don't know what kind it is, but it's in a tiny 2-inch pot, so it needs watering about every day, and I don't know if I can keep up with that routine. So I might just repot him into a bigger pot so I don't have to worry about that. And you can see he has some crispy leaves, but he's got some nice little white stripes in there, and I just thought he was really cute. I also have this rehab neon pothos on that shelf that's doing really, really well. I found this to be one of my easiest rehabs ever. It was just in the clearance section of Lowe's in a 6-inch pot for just this entire plant. So I had to take him home, pot him up, and just see him thrive once more, and he's doing really, really well, so I'm happy about that. And then I also have a curly spider plant right next to him, and I never really was a big fan of spider plants, but this one really like took my breath away, and in this little disco ball planter, I think he just looks so cute. And then the last one on that shelf is this little Tradescantia Nanook, I believe it is. It's the kind of pink purpley variation, and it's in this little tree stump pot. I need to find a plant to put in this one. But I think it's so pretty. I've been on a bit of a Tradescantia kick lately, so I found a bunch at the same time, which was super lucky for me. But it's just got such pretty leaves, and I hope that they don't die off on me, because I'm really hoping that this will just continue growing and vining and just look really cool. Moving down to the lower shelves here, we have I believe it's a Silver Splash Scindapsus. And I just have it in this little cup I found from Target, but this has the prettiest kind of like watercolor leaves on it. And it just put out a new leaf up here in the past week, so I'm super excited about this one. It is growing a lot quicker than I anticipated it to, but it's just so pretty, and I'm just excited to see it be really big and full. Next to that, I just have a pot of Brazil philodendron and then a couple silver stripe philodendron cuttings in there as well. And then next to that, I have another Pilea peperomioids, and this is one that I just got in the past couple weeks, but I really liked, there's like multiple plants in here and they just look really cool, and I don't know, I just really like the way that a grown out Pilea looks. So yeah, I hope I can keep this one alive. There is a bunch of new growth coming in, so I have hope. And I did just have its first watering the other day, and that's kind of my rule, is if it survives the first watering, most likely I can keep it alive. So let's hope that this sticks to that rule. And then on some of the bottom shelves here, we have another Tradescantia. This is one that I just got for clearance again at Lowe's. And some of the leaves are kind of shriveling up and dying and stuff, but that's kind of to be expected in the transition period from when I bring it home to when I got it. And then the last plant on my little shelf here is this Monstera Peru. It's just in this little concrete pot, and it's growing well, I think. There was a bit of vines that rotted off when I first potted it up here because I was water propping it for a while. But overall, it looks good. It's got nice big leaves and all the original leaves are still there. It started vining already, so I just hope that it continues to grow well. And then the other plants that I have here is this other philodendron Burl Marx cutting that is wrapping around the bookshelf a lot more these days. And then I have a domino peace lily over here that just threw out a new flower. And then I have a bunch of pots here that I need to figure out what to do with. And then in my bedroom, I just barely put this little table in here so I could fit more plants in here. But we have a Dieffenbachia, I think, camouflage that's starting to grow a bit better. I just barely put it in this area and it's getting a lot more light here. And then the first plant I have on this shelf is this little Calkins Gold philodendron. The variegation on these leaves is really subtle and just really pretty. So I hope that this can grow even bigger. Then I have a variegated epipremnum that needs water. The leaves are so droopy right now. And this I just found randomly at a plant store nearby. So I hope that it can start growing, get a bit more full, and just vine a little bit more. And then I just have some regular Scindapsus argius cuttings and a totem philodendron Brazil. The moss pole is a little bit too short for that pot, so I will probably need to pot up again soon. And then I have this other Syngonium, and I'm not sure what kind it is. It's got the little split leaves on some of the bigger leaves, and it's pink and everything. The label says pink splash, but there's not much splash going on with the leaves, so I'm just really unsure what exactly it is. And then the last plant on this little table is this green Maranta. It's a variegated kind, and it used to again be a full pot. I did just move it in here in the past month to kind of rehab it, and there is a lot of new growth coming in here, so it looks like it's working. And then next to that, I just have what used to be a ruby rubber tree, but it's really looking more like a Ficus tunicki these days. And we kind of just have a love-hate relationship because sometimes he chooses to grow really well, and then other times he just, like you can see on the leaves, burns up a little bit and is just unhappy. So I don't know what to do with him, but he still throws out some new leaves every now and then. And then over in the corner here, we have a Begonia maculata, which once again is kind of just a finicky plant for me. It's growing well right now, but it just will randomly die on me sometimes, and then I have to cut it all back and start from scratch. So I'm not holding my breath, but I'm enjoying it while it does grow. And then I did just put up this new shelf not too long ago, so I could fit even more plants in here, so we'll go through those. I have a tiny Scindapsus Trebii Moonlight here at the top next to a Monstera Siltipicana cutting here. I have a little pot of Micans below that, and then a Calathea ornata down below that, which I can never keep those happy, so I'm just glad that she has leaves to show. And then I have a mixed pot of some lemon lime philodendron and just some regular heartleaf philodendron in here. And then I have some more of the upright lemon lime philodendron variety in here, a smaller pot there, and then a bigger 6-inch pot next to it. And then moving on to my dresser, we probably have the only Calathea that I can keep happy, and I think it's called a Calathea Freddy, I believe is the variety. I'm not sure of its scientific name, but it does well here, and it kind of just grows like a weed. And then down in some darker light here is a Scindapsus exotica that throws out a lot of new leaves kind of randomly, and then it doesn't do anything for a bit, and then it throws out more new leaves. So it seems like it's happy enough, so I won't be moving him, and he is still looking really full, so it seems like it's happy. And then hanging on my bed frame, I have this really kind of funky looking Monstera deliciosa in a hanging pot, and I know it shouldn't be growing like this, but I kind of like the way that it's growing, so I just leave it there and prop it up when I need to. And then next to that, I have another philodendron Micans that got too long for the space it's in, so I had to wrap it around the top there. Some of the old leaves are dying off right now, just given the season change and everything. So it's probably going to be a pretty empty pot soon, but I'm just enjoying how pretty it looks now. And then moving on to my bathroom, it does get a lot of good light in here. So I have this strawberry begonia right next to my shower because they seem to enjoy the humidity, and it's kind of growing back from, I chopped it back a while ago, so it's kind of recovering from that. And then one of my favorite plants is this asparagus fern here, and it's got a bigger frond there at the top. But this is one that I was really afraid that I wouldn't be able to keep alive, but it has been doing really well here, and I just hope that it enjoys the high humidity. But yeah, if there's any issue and seems like it's in distress at all, I will be moving that in a second so it stays alive. So now we're in my husband's office, and I have quite a few plants in here because this gets some really nice southern light throughout the day, and especially in the afternoon, there's a ton of light coming in here. So there's a lot of plants that do really well. Starting off with my biggest Scindapsus argius plant, it goes all the way down to the floor and kind of wraps around the bookshelf, so I'm not going to take it all the way off because it might take some other plants with it. This is probably one of my older plants. I've had it since I lived in Utah. It's been through several moves with me, and it's done well through all of it. So I'm super happy about this one. It's probably my longest and fullest plant. Below that, I have another kind of lemon lime neon Hartley philodendron, and this one definitely needs a repot. I put it on this little homemade trellis ages ago, like over a year ago, and it's not even doing anything now. Like, it's not even attached to the trellis at all, and it's just completely outgrown it. But I just haven't gotten around to repotting it yet. And then on the bottom of that shelf is a pot of Scindapsus argius that I made from my main plant. That's doing really well. It's really nice and full, and it's just barely starting to trail over a little bit, so it seems like it's doing really well. And then one of my most neglected plants, I think, in my entire collection is this philodendron Birkin that doesn't even have any sort of Birkin variegation on it at all anymore. And it needs watering all the time, and I just forget to. But it's doing really well regardless. It gets very, very low light, and it's popping out so much new growth down here, and new growth is really shiny and glossy, so it looks cute still, but definitely not what it's supposed to be. Then some other plants I have here. I have this Cebu blue pothos that is trailing all the way down the bookshelf. I have my little mixed pot of some micans, some different Hartley philodendrons, and some Scindapsus argius in there, and then a little Monstera Peru hiding in there as well. And then below that, I have another marble queen pothos, and this one is much more green variegated than my other one in my first bedroom, or my first office, I suppose, that has a lot more white creamy variegation. And then down at the very bottom here, we have another pot of Scindapsus argius cuttings. Now over closer to the window, I have a lot more of my kind of more favored plants that I care about a little bit more. I have I mean, this one isn't one that I care about a ton, but it's one of my original string of hearts, and it's not doing super hot. It's super leggy, and I think it just needs a repot and some fertilizer, all that sort of stuff. The top still is looking decently good, but the rest of the leaves are just very sparse, and there's a lot of like tubers growing on it, so I don't know what it's doing, but I have it in some higher light than it was in before, so hopefully it makes a comeback. And one of my favorite plants is philodendron silver sword, and I have a couple different plants of it here, all coming from this main plant, which unfortunately got too heavy for its pot, fell over and snapped, so I had to take some propagations that I could pot up in a different pot, but I got another silver sword out of it, so I'm not super upset. But this one is just in a 4-inch pot in a really heavy cover pot, so it kind of leans against that a little bit, but it still kind of threatens to topple over all the time, so I kind of keep it leaning against the wall a little bit, and it's doing really well. From the cutting that I took, it popped out 2 new growth points, so it's actively growing in 2 places. So really that's a best case scenario in my mind. This is my other pot of silver sword philodendron, and this is the one that I took that's made of the cuttings from the first plant. And as you can see, it's a lot more full because there's so many different separate plants in here. And I was so scared that this one wasn't going to make it when I first potted it up because all the leaves just drooped over and weren't getting firm again. So I thought that they were going to just all die on me and none of the propagations would take, and then I'd be left with a very empty pot of silver sword philodendron. But in the past few weeks, it has just absolutely taken off, and there's a bunch of new growth coming in, and it's all looking so nice. So I'm so excited to see how much more this plant grows and just fills out, and it's in a really heavy pot, so tipping over should not be a problem. And then my last plant in that corner is this Hartley philodendron in like a massive 6 or 8 inch pot from Target, and it's doing like well considering. The problem is these Target pots have a bunch of slits in the bottom, and the roots just completely grow out of it. So I've chopped them back a couple times, but I don't think that's the best solution. Let me just show you. So the roots just completely grow out of the pot. So at this point, it's almost like a water propagation, just given the amount of roots that come out there. So I need to do something about it because I think that it would really help this plant out, but it is still growing regardless. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the best course of action is. And then in my last bedroom, I have this little pot of neon or lemon lime. I'm not sure the difference. A Hartley philodendron though, and it does really well. It doesn't get a ton of light because we keep the blinds closed in this room most of the time, but it still puts out these really nice red-orange kind of leaves. And it trails really nicely all the way down this desk and everything. So it's doing really well despite you know, the leaves are kind of curling in because it needs water and everything, but it grows really, really well. And then next to that is a plant that does not grow very well, and it's my golden pothos that I've had since I first started collecting, and it was just a couple leaves when I first got it. So it looks good considering that, but when you think about how it's been years and this is all I really have to show for this plant, it doesn't look great. And then my most embarrassing plant in my plant collection is this watermelon peperomia that I cannot make happy for the life of me. You can see a ton of leaves here are dying off. We do have a lot of new ones growing in, but it still just looks absolutely shocking, and I just really don't know what this plant wants. So those are all the plants I have in my house at the moment. I'm only counting plants as ones that are technically in soil. So all my water propagations I'm not really counting as plants, even though I technically could. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.